Warning. This video contains sensitive topic, which some viewers may find offensive or disturbing.
What is the saddest video game you have played and why? The Beginner's Guide. It's not a traditional game per se. It's more a story of an indie game developer sinking into depression as narrated by his friend. You play the games and levels that he made before he stopped making games. Probably, That Dragon. Cancer. I don't usually play video games, but I read about this one in a tech magazine and I was intrigued by the concept. The game was designed by Ryan Green, whose 5-year-old son Joel died of cancer. TDC is intended to help people understand what his family went through when their son got diagnosed 12 months old and what they experienced while raising him. The game explores what you do in life when the level is broken. When you can't get to the goal no matter what you do. The goal of the game is not to win or get to the next level, but to find the moments of grace in the darkest of times. It is an exploration game where the player is able to interact with the characters and make certain choices, similar to those that the Green family had to face while their son was growing up. Alongside the interactivity, the game includes narration from both Ryan Green and his wife Amy, as well as recordings such as voicemails that they had made during their time with their son. Some of the scenes also include cards, letters, and other mementos of support for the Greens, sent in by people that had experienced similar losses in their life. It was touching to see these elements included. There was a flash game called Cold Case. You are a ghost trying to solve your and other nearby ghosts' murders. In the end, you help your grieving girlfriend find her next relationship. It got me to thinking about much it must suck to be a ghost and be forced to watch your loved ones move on without you. That reminds me a bit to the game Murdered, Sole Suspect. A game where your character dies twice, literally. His ghost dies because his corpse was double-tapped with a pistol and he is forced to help other ghosts find their closure and discover who murdered him so he can finally go to the afterlife with his deceased wife. Probably Soma. The ending hit me hard and I proceeded to have an existential crisis for the next week. I've never felt hopelessness like I did at the end of Soma. I still revisit that scene sometimes. I know they try and say there's a good ending, but personally, the original one is what I consider the real one, and that's kinda terrifying. Among the Sleep, you're a toddler trying to survive all these scary scenarios. Spoiler alert. At the end you realize the whole game was about you as a child trying to escape trauma and then finding out your mother in the game was an abusive alcoholic and that's who you were running from the whole time, and at the end you're getting taken away on your birthday. That game messed me up for a min. Not me. My son played an indie game wherein two brothers go on a quest to find water from the Tree of Life to save their dad from dying. The game can only be played by working together, as in each controller is half controlled by the other player. The quest takes them through dangers and phobias and the brothers bond. They then meet and are befriended by a young woman whom the older brother is attracted to and turns out to be a spider who bites him. They are able to vanquish the spider, but the older brother is mortally wounded. Still they press on and make it to the tree, too weak to climb it. The older brother stays behind whilst the younger one climbs the tree and retrieves the precious water. When he gets back, the older brother has passed away. He cries and pours the water from the tree onto him, and at first, as he hugs his brother, it seems to have worked. But it is only an illusion, and the younger brother, realizing that he's really on his own, lays his brother to rest and makes his way home. He has to face his fear of water alone, without the brother there to support and cheer him on. He eventually makes it back in time to save his dad, but it is so sad. When my son was describing the game to me, I was crying like a baby. I told him I had no idea games were so artistic. Such a beautiful way to convey art. It's called Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. It's an awesome game. So is the other game the director made. It's called A Way Out. I played A Way Out with a friend in one day. Amazing game. Rhyme. It is a game on loss, depression, recovery, and understanding what happened, and I started playing it not too long after losing a good friend a couple years ago. Valiant Hearts. The only piece of entertainment I've cried at that I can recall recently. I even knew the ending and it still got me. Dude. Emil last letter brings me to years every time. Endgame spoilers warning dearest Marie as the war ends for me. I have no regrets. I've seen too much horror. I hope fate has been more merciful to you. Our time on earth is brief. And mine has been filled with so much joy, that I can only be thankful for how much I've been blessed. Most specially for the wonder you brought into my life. This letter is my last. I've been found guilty by a military court for the death of an officer. It was not my intention to kill him. War makes men mad. Though I failed Carl, I know my sacrifice has not been in vain. I fought for my country and my liberty. My honor is assured, since it is the will of God to separate us on earth. I hope we'll meet again in heaven. Keep me in your prayers. Your loving Papa, always. This war of mine. That's how it is and was for most of the people that lived through it, and some still do, unfortunately. To the Moon. 4 hours indie game about an old man on his deathbed trying to fulfill a childhood promise. It's a story about trauma and love and memories, and it uses the video game medium so well to tell it. With just the occasional joke to keep you from immediately killing yourself. Part of its power probably comes from the music. Some really hard-wrenching piano songs in there. Just came out on Switch IIRC. Or Steam. Wept like a baby onto the moon. I have never cried before from a video game. I played the entirety of To the Moon in one 7-hour sitting, and by the end I was crying uncontrollably. My roommate at the time, who had shown me the game, was with me the whole time and was also crying his eyes out. So there we are, two 21-year-old college guys sobbing at 3 in the morning over a video game. FF10 from Xanarkand to the end. Knew what was coming but still hit deep. I'm sorry I couldn't show you Xanarkand. I think that's the hardest I'd ever cried while playing a game. Heck, I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. Spec Ops: The Line. The choices you had to make in that game were truly saddening. The choice you had to make with the revolver after the water trucks, man, that game played the fine line between humanity and heartlessness. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon. Time. Darkness. Sky. The scenes near the climax of the game are done very well with music that tugs on your heartstrings. Lol. Kinda surprised that I haven't seen this one yet. I won't spoil it, but god, that ending is intense. Especially how the credits roll and makes you think that's it. Before the true resolution. Last of Us. The story just sticks. The characters are so fun and interesting. Or badass. Or ruthless and you wanna murder them. It's a video game filled with emotional thrills and deep pauses where the music really shines. God, the music. This war of mine, such a different game. So hard to describe what it means to become those everyday people stuck in the middle of a war zone. What your decisions mean and how hard it is to remain human when so much inhumanity surrounds you. Deep game filled with morality and sadness. RDR2, the ending and the fate of Arthur. The way the game's story sorta gets you there. All of it is heartbreaking, and with a game so rich with detail and hours upon hours of gameplay, it's hard not to grow close to the characters and not to feel a part of the gang once it all goes to shit. Madden 20. Every time I play it I just cry because it's such a bad game. Not the whole game, but a side quest in The Witcher 3 got me to cry for the first and only time so far to a game. In the quest Black Pearl. You find a black pearl for this guy's wife. You ask him if she liked it. And he says he isn't sure. You press him, and it turns out his wife has some sort of Alzheimer's, dementia, and doesn't act the same or remember things. The black pearl was something they always joked about. And he hoped giving her one would sort of bring her back. It doesn't, and I've had family members succumb to the same type of afflictions. And it's heart-wrenching to see. There are so many side quests in The Witcher 3 that, even if they don't make you cry, they leave you thinking. I remember getting the quest to make a swallow potion for that sick girl near the starting hour or so of the game. And since it was my first time I had trouble gathering the ingredients. By the time I made the potion and got to the girl, she was dead. I felt really bad. Mass Effect 3. Of course the quality of the ending is a big point for most alongside anger, but outside of that a lot of people start dying and sometimes there's nothing you can do to save them no matter how you played out the trilogy. It winds up being quite the sad adventure. Crazy how we knew Thane was terminally ill when we first got him. Yet his death still wound up being a huge gut punch. Even then he fucking threw down with Kai like a damn boss in such a way that I really wanted to see what a perfectly healthy Thane in his prime could do. Yet all I could do later was sit by his bedside as his time came. Morden's death turned one of his most prominent quotes into a tearjerker as he sacrifices himself to ensure the job got done right. The man went from assuring the near sterilization of a species to dying to save said species. Legion hurt too. Funny how if asked to rank the Mass Effect 2 squad by favorites, Legion would be towards the bottom of my list while still being a solid character. But we get to Rannick and he hits you with the "does this unit have a soul?" in a callback to the question that kicked off a war, and it winds up being the beginning of peace between his and Tally's people. It's not just prominent characters either. Best example of more minor characters is the Krogan Char, O Blue Rose of Ilium, dying during the Rachni raid, and we have to deliver his final words to Ariba. And we find out they had a kid on the way. The way they kept side characters in the story was amazing. But really sad most of the time. The guy you meet at the facility where Jack was raised? If you spared him, he dies in a last stand to let civilian shuttles escape. They do a really good job of letting you get close to all these different characters. In your own, different ways. And then, when the world is ending, they don't give them plot armor. It's really painful, but it's not done cheaply. By the end of the game I totally had Shepard's mindset of not one more, at least. Not if I can help it. Heavy Rain has a really sad plotline of loss and a father's love. The antagonist in the story is going around kidnapping children to torture the fathers, believing that men should be tested to be worthy of being called a father. This was due to an incident that had occurred in the antagonist's childhood where his brother had fallen through a hole in a storm drain at a construction site. The antagonist tries to get help, but his drunk father dismisses it and beats the antagonist for disrupting him, resulting in the death of the antagonist's brother. Majora's Mask. Something about that game is just very unsettling and yet melancholy at the same time. From sitting in a bar with some people you looked up to at the last few minutes before the world ends to Link's pain of being alone. Just listening to the music gives those vibes. As well as just most of the story and atmosphere. And if you guy into the 5 stages of grief Thoroi, it becomes even more so. It's a beautiful game. It's beautifully hopeless and heart-crushing. Not in the way a good story that makes people die can. But in just a beautiful, eerie way. You are the hero, but there will always be people beyond saving, including yourself. Life is Strange was pretty tough in a few different spots. The assisted suicide scene, and then the whole plot in the last chapter was just so dark. Not to mention the choice in the end was pretty brutal too. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and hit the notification button. See you next time.